Shema, Yasha'Allah, Yahweh, Allahayanawa, Yahweh, Ahad. That's Hero Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and are worthy of their double honors. Peace and blessing to you, Aki, and pushing out this truth across the four corners during these last seconds of time. Kwam Yasha'Allah, mighty Shalom. And this lesson is entitled, And to him that laded himself with thick clay, depth. And to him that laded himself with thick clay, depth. Lord willing, this message be edifying. It's coming from the Newsbreak app. Business. It says national debt surpasses 38 trillion milestone for first time in United States history as spending surges. It says the U.S. national debt surpassed another historic milestone as it topped 38 trillion for the first time this week, as the federal government continues to rack up debt at a record-setting pace. And not only is this trouble for this country, but ultimately this is prophecy, all right? The Lord is simultaneously and strategically through these prophecies taking America down, which ultimately, which will be destroyed ultimately by thermonuclear heat, ICBM nuclear missiles. But this is just one plague that is befallen upon this place, all right? The plague of debt, or like the scriptures say, thick clay. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man. And that wine is going into philosophies, dogmas, doctrines, that he is talking about Esau Edom. All right, that proud man that ruleth the earth with treachery, that ruleth the earth with oppression, that ruleth the earth with violence, raping, robbing, pillaging, colonizing, going into different lands, slashing and burning, all right, so to speak, dividing, conquering, indoctrinating. He's done that throughout the earth, but now prophecy has caught up with him. Mainly here in America, where you see all these different plagues befalling upon this place, because America is the main place where the Lord is going to judge, all right, by thermonuclear heat. So it says he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. Because how many military bases are throughout the earth, all right? Hundreds upon hundreds, man, okay? Matter of fact, I'll just look into that statistics. It says there is no single definitive total for the number of military bases in the world, as figure vary and many bases are not publicly disclosed. However, the United States has the largest number of overseas bases, with approximately 750 located in 80 countries. Other nations with foreign military bases include the UK, France, and Russia, which have far fewer combined than the US. So the scriptures say he enlargeth himself as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gather unto him all nations, and heap it unto him all people. Because Esau Edom's goal and mind ultimately is the NWO, all right, the charagma. Revelation 13 and 16, he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, to receive a charagma in their right hand or their forehead. So the elites ultimately, the wicked elites, are planning on crashing this system, all right, this financial system, all right, funding civil war, okay, race wars, all these different things to ultimately crash America, implement their digital system, all right, which is going to be spearheaded by Revelation 13 and 16, the charagma, all right, and further their rule and global dominance. But the scriptures say in Psalms, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. So Esau Edom, you're being controlled by Yahweh Shemiel Shah. The Lord created you this way to cause hell in the earth, all right? To be that man of oppression, to be that proud man. And there's an old playground rule in the world. It says the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And that's likened on to Esau Edom. You're not going to be able to escape these plagues. You're not going to be able to escape, all right, the depth, all right. You're not going to be able to escape the pestilence, the plagues that the Lord is sending, like it says in 2nd Ezra. It says that the Lord sendeth the plagues, and who is he that can turn them away? So it says, verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? And that's Esau Edom, all right? He increaseth that which is not his, which is the earth, all right? He increaseth it in wickedness, all right? He further his agenda through violence. But the scriptures say in Job 9:24 that the earth was given into the hands of the wicked, and so it shall be taken. It says in 2 Thessalonians, he that will let until he be taken out of the way, all right? In Job, it says, with him is strength and wisdom, the deceived and the deceiver are his. So Yahweh Shemi Yahushua has you playing his role, Esau, wreaking havoc throughout the earth, all right, until you be taken out of power. So it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that thick clay is going into this depth that America is ultimately breaking records in. It says national debt surpasses 38 trillion milestone. It says the U.S. national debt surpassed another historic milestone as it topped 38 trillion for the first time this week, as the federal government continues to rack up debt at a record-setting pace. It says new data from the Treasury Department released on Wednesday, which was yesterday, showed that the gross national debt reached 38 trillion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as of October the 21st. And that's that thick clay that the scriptures is talking about. All right, let's get it. I'll read it in the NLT. Habakkuk 2:5-6. Wealth is treacherous, and the arrogant are never at rest. That's Esau Edom all day, man. All right, he doesn't sleep unless he do some wickedness. The scriptures tell us that. It says they open their mouth as wide as the grave, and like death they are never satisfied. In their greed they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many peoples. That's right. Scriptures say Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. This is Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon, and this is talking about America, all right? Babylon had been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad, right? Of her philosophies, her dogmas, her doctrines. The nations have ultimately drunken of that cup, and they've likened themselves onto America. But these nations are waking up and dumping this dollar, they're dumping this currency. And America is being laden with that thick clay, that debt that's ultimately going to result in a financial crash. All right. It says the nations have drunk enough of wine, therefore the nations are mad. Back in Habakkuk 2:5 in the NLT, it says, in their greed, they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many peoples. Verse 6, but soon their captives will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you, thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You've become rich by extortion, but how much longer can this go on? And not much longer, because ultimately there's about to be a crashing from the hills, like the scriptures say. But let's get that thick clay and show that it's going into the debt.
Strong's H 5671 Avteet. Strong's H 5671 Avteet.
Avteet, it says debt, weight of pledges, heavy debts. Weight of pledges, heavy debts. Strong's definition, pawn goods, thick clay. All right, something pledged, right? Debts. And that's what America has covered itself in. Debts upon debts upon debts. But you see, the BRICS nations are assembling themselves against America and against its currency, man. Scriptures say the nations have drunk of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. But these nations have sobered up and they see America for the dog it actually is, man. And on the wake of ultimately this November the 1st deadline for the cutoff of SNAP benefits, man. All right. Now, on yesterday, they're saying that America has reached 38 trillion in debt, an historical amount. So these signs are ultimately pointing to the end. And I just looked this up as well. Can a country's debt lead to a stock market crash? It says yes. A country's debt can lead to a stock market crash through channels like higher interest rates, reduced corporate profits, and decreased investor confidence. High government debt can lead to high borrowing costs, lower corporate earnings, and can make bonds more attractive than stocks, which can trigger sell-offs and market downturn. Right. And also inflation. And we're seeing that as well. The things that you used to go into the store, they were $5, $10. Now they're jumping up to $15, $20, $30. The scripture speaks of that. A measure of wheat for a penny. All right. A loaf of bread for a full day's work. That's the times that we're coming into. Inflation, hyperinflation. All these things are plagues sent by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. And it says, yes, a country's debt can lead to a stock market crash. And the scriptures speak of a stock market crash. This is Zephaniah 1 and 10. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, right, where commerce takes place. That's likened unto the stock market. And an howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. And that's going into the stock market crashing. All right. When you go into the elements of a stock market, it's shown in a manner of what's likened unto graphs. All right. Fluctuating lines going up and down. All right. Descending, ascending. That's likened onto hills. All right. That's what Zephaniah 1 and 10 is talking about. It's talking about a full-blown stock market crash. And that's what's going to happen. Look, it says a country's debt can lead to a stock market crash, higher interest rates, reduced corporate profits, and decreased investor confidence. And that's what's happening. The investors that were investing in this place, they're drawing back, man. All right. It tells you in James, how ye rich men. All right. And that's talking about Esau, Edom, the rich men, these wicked elites, ultimately. All right. This is and it also say just to add, it also says in Ecclesiastes, the keepers of the house shall tremble. And that's what's happening to these top economists. All right. These international banking families, they're shaking in their boots because their cash cow America is coming to naught. It's circling the drain. It's about to belly up, so to speak. And I'll just continue down the NLT. It says Habakkuk 2 and 7. Suddenly your debtors will take action. They will turn on you and take all you have, Salakia, while you stand trembling and helpless, because you have plundered many nations. Now all the survivors will plunder you. You committed murder throughout the countryside and filled the towns with violence. The scriptures say, woe to the bloody city. That's talking about America. America is about to be made an example out of from the heavens, man. All right. These issues with the stock market, with EBT, the SNAP being cut off, Civil War, race wars. Hey, that's the least of your problems, America. You got to deal with that thermonuclear heat, those ICBM nuclear missiles that are going to blot this place out and make it no longer in existence. All right. But these plagues, these different birth pains that the Lord is sending on the earth, they're indicating that Yahweh Shai, whom the word really calls Jesus Christ, is soon to return. So it says, verse 9, what sorrow awaits you who build big houses with money gained dishonestly? You believe your wealth will buy security, putting your family's nest beyond the reach of danger. That's right. And America has been built up off treachery, dishonesty. All right. Thievery. OK. The wealth that was built up here is no wealth at all. All right. So it says you believe your wealth will be security, buy security, putting your family's nest beyond the reach of danger. But by the murders you committed, you have shamed your name and forfeited your lives. The very stones in the walls cry out against you, and the beams in the ceilings echo the complaint. What sorrow awaits you who build cities with money gained through murder and corruption? And that's Esau, Edom, man. All right. And it says in the KJV, woe to him that builded a town with blood and established a city by iniquity. And that's how America was established, with blood off the backs of you so-called Native Americans, Latinos, and Negroes, man. All right. And it was established by iniquity, but it's ultimately going to be taken down in prophecy. All right. And this debt and the stock market crashing is just a precursor ultimately to what's to come to this place, which is ultimately thermonuclear heat, ICBM nuclear missiles, man. All right. Lord willing, this message was edifying. I'm going to give infinite honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachakwadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings until next time. Kwam Yashala. Mighty Shalom.